You can all join us and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. It's funny as I was hearing David and just hearing the intro to Buddhism and that title. I've been leading this class twice a week for probably 12 years, and it's funny that the title itself, Intro to Buddhism, it's almost like it should be an introduction to yourself. Because when you hear the phrase introduction to Buddhism, it makes it sound as if you're going to learn something about something else. And what you're really learning about is yourself. The first thing we're going to learn is if everybody who has a mask on can put them over the nose and the mouth, that'd be great. Appreciate it. And now, see how that felt. What did that feel like when I said that? Who wants to play along honestly? What did it feel like when I said pull the mask up the nose and the mouth? Come on. How'd it feel?
Like being told what to do. I don't know.
Yeah. But what did it feel like for you? Not necessarily what did you hear? What's that?
Easy.
Beautiful. Great. Did it make anyone feel uneasy or uncomfortable? I know it's a bunch of new people and I'm putting y'all on the spot. I'm really bad at that. But it's those types of things that this practice really becomes a beautiful opportunity to begin to explore what is going on with us as things occur. That's really what this practice is. And for those who are brand new to Buddhism, yes, I will introduce you to Buddhist teachings and Buddhist practice. But what you eventually realize is all this is doing is creating an opportunity for you to sit in front of a mirror and reflect back. All right? When you're happy, who makes you happy? You make yourself happy. And when you're miserable, who makes you miserable? Same. And the beauty of this practice and this recognition is that it gives us absolute 100% control over our own emotions and our own feelings and our own interactions with everyone. And that can be scary, or it can be incredibly liberating. For me as a practitioner, it's been incredibly liberating to know that I am the one who's actually in control of my emotions and how I feel. It's really nice to wake up and finally realize that. Now, that doesn't mean that those emotions or feelings are always like perfectly peaceful and happy. It just means that you have the ability to control all of them. And very often we go through our days creating this idea or reality in our heads that someone else or something else or someplace else is what's responsible for our own peace and our own happiness. And this practice is recognizing, no, it's all on you. When we do beautiful, kind, compassionate things in our lives, that's on us. When we do harmful, selfish, angry things in our lives, that's on us. And for me, the very foundation of this practice is waking up to exactly that. That your choices that you make are your choices. Not just what we do externally in our lives, how we move through the world, but our thoughts and our words and our actions. And ultimately, this is what the Buddha was teaching about karma. Karma is just body, speech, mind, what we think, what we say, and what we do. So this practice is learning to have insight, recognition, and absolute awareness of the intention behind every single thing you think, every single thing you say, and every single thing you do. And that's the easy part, right? It allows yourself to slow down and become aware of what am I thinking, what am I saying, what am I doing? And then the hard part is to act on your thoughts and words and physical actions in a way that's not so much driven around selfishness and greed, but around kindness and compassion for others. So you just have to be nice to everybody. That's it. So good luck with that. So we'll start with a meditation practice. For those who are joining us online, sorry, I always forget to give my shout out to our millions of fans around the world here. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourself, check in with others. And when we get to questions, feel free to chime in there as well. So meditation practice, there's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Okay? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Okay? Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed. Same thing if you're on a bench or a chair, just trying to sit up straight, stomach forward, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. So don't feel like you're locked in this perfectly stiff, still position. Just gently move and return to stillness. Eyes will be open or closed, whatever is comfortable. Same thing with the mouth. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments of your practice, just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful. Whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, and disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour without being disturbed by someone. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment. And if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation necessarily doesn't fix that. It makes you become aware of why your life might be a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess. And then you begin to make changes in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. But it is a practice. And it takes time. It's important to recognize how you feel right now. Who feels pretty calm, relaxed right now? How long do you think this feeling is going to last? I don't know. That's a good answer. What else? How long do you think it's going to last? Anybody? The rest of tonight? What else?
Not long.
Not long. There's no wrong answer here. There's no right answer.
Something happens on the drive home.
Till something happens on the drive home. Well, at least you're giving yourself to the drive home, you know. So what we see here is that this feeling that you have right now can last as long as you want it to. Will it? I mean, I hate to be a downer and all, but probably not. All right. The bad news is this feeling goes away. The good news is you're the one that made yourself feel this way. Not me, not this place, not Buddhism, not the Buddha. He died 2,500 years ago. He cannot help you at all, my friends. You made yourself feel this way. The world out there didn't just finish their meditation practice, most likely. And as soon as we get in whatever means of transportation, whether we walked or drove or took the bus, however we got here, that world out there is going 1,000 miles an hour, and they will quickly run you over before you even have a time to take another breath. So we don't practice meditation. It's important for those who are new to this. We don't practice meditation to be good at meditation. Because what's the point if you're good at this and then as soon as you step outside, something happens and then boom, we're just triggered and we're right back to the mess we were before. We practice this so when we get up, we walk outside, you already know the world out there is not going to do everything you want it to. They're not going to say what you want to say. They're not going to drive how you want to drive. They're not going to, do what you want. Life just doesn't work that way. But it's our mind's constant obsession and craving and desire to try to get everyone and everything to do and be exactly how we think they should do and be. I don't know if that made sense, but you get my point. So this practice is about surrendering and letting go of this absolute obsession we have with other people being how we want them to be. It just doesn't work that way. We can't even control how we are. Yet for some reason we get this notion in our head that we want others to be a certain way. Impossible. Anyone here dealing with a mess in their head? I mean, how do you think I got to this position? My mind isn't any less of a mess than it was 20 years ago. If anything, it's more of a mess because I'm much more aware of what a mess my head is. I'm like, oh my God, you were just an absolute disaster. So if your mind is a mess, potentially, I don't want to assume anyone is a mess. What do you think everybody else is dealing with? Their same own mess. But yet we're so fixated on them being a certain way. So the practice of, and you'll hear this a lot in Buddhism, of being present, right? Being present means that you're going to be present with a situation, whether it's a person, place, or thing, as it is. And what we typically do is we become present with the person or place or thing or situation, and we have an idea of how we want it to be. So we tell ourselves, well, I'm present, but I want them to be a different way. In the present moment, I want you to be different. This practice is showing up in the present moment and just embracing how things are. And then controlling your response to that. If you can learn this, I don't want to call it a trick, a skill, a practice. If you can learn this, your life will drastically change forever. Because you're no longer conditioned by somebody else's actions. Any craving, any desire, all of these things that we live with, we're able to control. But what triggers them is life not going how we want it to. Anyone good at making excuses for why we did certain things? Right? So this practice is dropping all those excuses. So that I'll pause. I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, for those who are joining us online, welcome. There's a chat box there on your screen. Feel free to type in a question if you want as well, or just say hello, and I'll do my best to respond as well. So we'll use the rest of our brief time and just open up for questions.
How do you let go of resentment? Just let go in general.
Any more? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was more. So the question for those who maybe didn't hear was, how do you let go of resentment, or just let go in general? Great question, and I'm glad you added just let go in general, because if you can, I'm not going to answer your question yet, or probably not at all, but if you can learn to let go of things in general, that would also cover things like resentment, right? So my master used to always say, when you ask questions, don't look for answers, change the way you ask questions. And what that eventually meant to me and helped me realize was that my views of a situation, I was very stuck in them. And as I tried to expand my view to endless possibilities of any situation, it also changed the way I ask questions. So you kind of immediately went from let go of resentment to letting go of things in general. Wouldn't that be nice? What would it be like? I mean, you started with resentment, so maybe that's like the most burning thing in you that you'd love to let go of, but I'm sure there's other things you'd love to let go of. What would it feel like, whether it's resentment or anything else? What would it feel like, do you think, to let go of something?
Peace, serenity.
Peace, serenity. What else? Anyone else want to shout out? What would it feel like to let go of something? Freedom? Is that what you said? Yeah, freedom.
Could be unfamiliar.
Unfamiliar?
Change.
Yeah, change. Could be scary. Any else? Do you have a phone?
Not on me.
You're a terrible example. This isn't going to work with you.
Sorry.
You got anything on you? Nothing.
On my wallet.
Okay, that'll work. This isn't going to work as well, though. But will you give me your wallet? How does that feel? Unsure. So as easy as it was, thanks for the wallet, by the way. As easy as it was for you to let go of your wallet, is how easy it is for you to let go of everything else you're holding on to. I'm not saying you're going to be able to do it, nor am I saying I'm able to do it. I'm just telling you that what you just accomplished is the exact same thing. The reason I prefer phones as a better example, because believe it or not, everybody's different, but phones are like these physical, tangible things that have almost become like extensions. Like they might as well just chop our wrist off and put a phone right there. These tend to be the most attached things that we have in our lives. Like, and I'm guilty as well. Like they're never more than like 6 inches from our body, right? And so very often, I work with college kids a lot. Very often when I say to them, will you hand me your phone? You can literally see the fear, like the trepidation, like no, I can't. I cannot give this to you. Because there's a whole world that is built in this little device. Way less than what's in here. I mean, yes, maybe there's, I don't know, maybe money, no money, credit card, no credit card. Well, I don't know what's in here. I'm not opening it, don't worry. But we are so attached, right? In Buddhism, the word is non-attachment. So the question of how do we let go of things is really addressing the Buddhist teachings on non-attachment. So when we look at non-attachment, we have to look at what are we attached to? We're attached to our views, to our ideas, to our perceptions. You ever been in an argument with someone? Never?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not lately.
Not lately, but you've been in an argument before. And when you were in that argument, did you think you were right?
Yes,
And what did you think the other person thought?
they were right.
How can that be? That right there is the essence of every conflict in the world. Two sides that think they're right. You ever been wrong and you still argue just to try to prove that you're right? Yeah, it was like half my life that way. And that's the greatest attachment, is our attachment to our view. And from this attachment to thinking that our views are correct, every other attachment follows. This really gets into, and I'm not going to get into this tonight, but the essence of the teaching on Buddhism of non-self. This idea that we are this permanent thing and that everything that we see in the world is exactly how we see it. Not possible. But from that attachment to our views, every other attachment follows. Does that make sense so far? So, come back to resentment for a minute. When we resent people, ourselves, things we've done, we're holding on to a view that we had tied to an expectation of how we wanted someone else to be. Does that make sense? And if we can recognize, anyone in your life ever caused you pain, right? Do you think that person suffers in their lives? You ever cause somebody pain? Do you suffer in your life? So you're no different than they are. Buddhist teachings are very clear that we as humans, right, we are unenlightened folks. And the first noble truth, the first thing Buddha taught is that life is filled with suffering. We all will experience suffering in our lives. Doesn't mean all life sucks. It just means that we're going to experience pain and suffering in our lives. The second thing he taught is what's the cause of suffering. The causes are greed, our anger, and our ignorance. In Buddhism, we call that the three poisons. The third noble truth is there's an ending to suffering. This is nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. And the fourth is the path. This is the eightfold path. And this is to have the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. You can Google all that for free, right? It starts with the view. Because we think the world revolves around our views, every attachment follows. And because we often lack the ability to recognize that those who caused harm to us did so because they were suffering. So in Buddhism, especially if you're new, you'll hear the word compassion constantly. Having compassion for people doesn't just mean those who do the things that you like. Having compassion really ultimately means having compassion for those that have harmed us. Having compassion for those that have, done terrible things. And always starting with compassion, the first place you must begin is have compassion for yourself. That's also where a lot of this resentment often lies in us. That people treat us a certain way, we have resentment towards them, we have zero ability to have compassion for them, we hate ourselves, we lack compassion for ourselves, and we end up in this just miserable, depressed place. Right? Compassion towards self. Understand our views are not reality. There are perceptions of reality. And that those who caused us harm, they also suffer. Does that intellectually make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's going to take more than an hour to put that into your life, right? So intellectually, yeah, there you go. But then it's a practice. And I wish I could say, what's your name?
Brian?
Brian, I wish I could say, Brian, by tomorrow you're going to be good. But what this gives you, hopefully, is a framework of beginning to understand how and why you carry so much resentment. And you can begin to explore this for the next 3 months, 3 years. Because believe me, we're all going to have plenty of things the rest of our lives where we'll build resentment towards. And we also have enough things in our lives that we're carrying resentment for. So the beautiful thing about Buddhist practice is we never run out of opportunities to practice it. So hope that's helpful.
It was.
Yeah. Other thoughts, questions?
Can I have my wallet back?
No, I'm teaching you non-attachment. And I want you to sit with that feeling of an absolute stranger holding your wallet. Other thoughts, questions? Good question, though, both of them. Go ahead, Molly. Yeah, we'll go in there.
No, I was just gonna share, like, for me, the letting go is really is the whole purpose of my practice. That's why I practice, is to kind of let go. So I listen to a lot of Dharma talks, do a lot of guided meditations where that's the topic. So I was listening to one just like 2 days ago, Matthew Silver, and he was saying, when you think about the breath, when we say focus on the breath, instead of having it be like the breath is the focus, think about the breath as the way of letting go. So I started kind of doing that. Because that is how we think, like focus on the breath, and that keeps us from thinking, but just use the breath as a way of sort of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
I've been dealing with some sort of interpersonal emotional things, and so I've been doing that a lot, and it really has been helping me.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that whole, all those Buddhists are always talking about focusing on the breath. It's the most present thing there is. And so if you're newer to this practice, focusing on the breath gives you something present to focus on. And if you're focusing on the present moment, what are you not focused on? The past or the future. So that's a beautiful way of just staying present and moving beyond all of our resentments and angers that we carry from the past and all our stresses and worries that we carry in the future. We just learn to stay present. And the breath is a perfect practice. Yeah, Jason.
Could you comment on the Buddhist view of the self and its role in generating our own suffering?
So let me just repeat that so I heard it correctly. Can I comment on the Buddhist view of the self and its role
in generating our own suffering?
In generating our own suffering. Yes. Let me ask you this question first as a follow-up. Is your question, are you asking how do we generate our own suffering?
I'm in particular related to the Buddhist view of the self.
Well, the Buddhist view of the self is really simple because the Buddha said there is no self.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. So if you have a view of yourself, you're just, according to the Buddhist teachings, let me ask you this. Let me go in a different direction. The first thing I was going to say is, if we don't generate our own suffering, I just want to clarify this, not just for you, but for anybody. If we don't generate our own suffering, who possibly could? Is it possible for anyone else to generate our own suffering? I want to clarify this first. Is it possible for anyone else to generate our own suffering?
Seems like it is.
How?
Well, I don't know. I mean, just you watch the news in these countries where they're having like ethnic cleansing or genocide.
Okay.
I mean, people do some pretty awful things.
Yes. Yes. People do awful things. Ethnic cleansing, genocide, there are horrific, disgusting, terrible things going on in the world. This practice doesn't say ignore that. It doesn't say that's right. My question was, who generates your suffering?
Mine, me.
You. It is your response to these things. And I'm not saying your response to these things should be happy. What I want you to understand first is that nobody else can generate the way we feel. It is a trigger, right? It triggers us to feel a certain way. So that's the first thing, is to really understand that 100% we generate how we feel. We can see horrific things in the world and get incredibly angry, sad, disgusted, furious. And then we have an opportunity to sit with that and recognize, how does this make me feel? Here's anger. Anger is arising. What am I going to do with this emotion? You ever been angry? You ever acted on anger? How's that work out?
Not real well.
Not real well. Usually doesn't. And I get it, the whole justification of anger can be a motivator, but still, if we can transform that anger, and this is what the Buddha taught, we overcome the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance, the cause of our suffering, the second noble truth, with the practice of generosity, compassion, wisdom. He very specifically said we overcome anger with the practice of compassion. We see the horrific things going on in the world. We generate a feeling of anger, sadness, disgust, whatever it might be, and then we work to transform that into wisdom and compassion to try to make change. That's the practice. But we must own that we are responsible for our own reaction and our own feelings and our own emotions. That's where it starts. Does that make sense? I'm not saying we can do it. I just intellectually want to make sure you understand that part. The second part, the question of, the Buddhist view on the self. You like pizza? If you take a bite, you know what it tastes like? Mm-hmm. Now, if I ask you, Jason, what's this pizza taste like? And you start to describe it to me. Is that description what it tastes like? No. The moment that you begin to describe what that pizza tastes like, that is no longer the reality of what that pizza tastes like. It's the same way for the self. We have a story. You take a bite of pizza, that taste, that experience, that taste is what it tastes like. And then you tell me a story about it. It was good, it was too hot, it was too cold, there were too many mushrooms, there was too much cheese, it was not enough sauce, it was too thick, it was too thick. There's a whole story behind it, right? We do the same thing for ourselves. We have a story that we've created our whole life. I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I am this, I am that. When you meet someone, you tell them this is where I'm from, and these are my experiences, and there's a whole story. Is that story who you are? No. So that attachment, that view of the sense of self, tying into really the earlier question, is the Buddha says that the view of yourself is an illusion. What that means is we think that story is us.
It seemed like the Buddha was talking about like our psychological self-representation or self-image. I mean, not like our existence, not that we're not existing individuals, but this picture we carry around in our heads of ourselves is a fiction. Is that right?
What was the last part you said? The picture we carry?
The picture we carry around of ourselves is a fiction. It's like created moment by moment.
Is a fiction? Is that what was the word?
Yeah,
Okay. Fiction, illusion. What he's saying is that we are attached to this view of ourselves. Ultimately, we're just a collection of consciousness in this physical form. I mean, if you get into technical Buddhist teachings, we've come together in this physical form, we have consciousness, and this physical form will die. So we're simply a collection of all of our karma, all of our consciousness, all of our actions. But we give that a name, we give it a story, and we try to label and identify and judge and critique all of that. And that's where the suffering comes from. So just eat pizza. I mean, one of my favorite Zen expressions is when hungry, eat, when tired, sleep. It's just trying to keep things so simple. But our heads make things so complicated. Another beautiful, one of my favorites is, to a worm and horseradish, the world is horseradish. So if your mind sits all day long in miserable stuff, and I'm not talking about avoid it. I mean, engaged Buddhism, socially active, like get out there and make change because this world is a mess. It's disgusting, and it needs people with kind, compassionate hearts to make change. So that's critical, right? But if our mind stays in the mess all day long, and all we're wrapped up in is all the negativity, and that's all we focus on, then we become that angry person filled with hatred and vengeance. And that's not beneficial. And that actually just destroys yourself. Well, I mean, there's no self to destroy, but, Yeah, good questions. Any other kind of final one more question or thought on that or anything that you're sitting with?
I mean, it kind of relates to somewhat of letting go, but how do you forgive yourself?
So the question of, and I'll close with this question, kind of relates to letting go, but how do you forgive yourself? I'm glad you've evolved past the question of, can I have my wallet back, right? So how do we forgive ourselves? There's a Buddhist sutra teaching where there's a woman who lost a child. And she goes to the Buddha, obviously devastated, wanting him to find a way to bring this child back. And he says, go to collect a mustard seed from every house that has not known death or loss like that. And so she goes on her way. She comes back, 0 mustard seeds. What this means is we all experience pain. We all experience suffering. We all experience loss. And in that process, we, for some reason, put so much pressure on ourselves to be these perfect human beings. Our entire lives, again, to use the teaching of conditioning, our entire lives we have been conditioned by everyone around us to be better, right? We're in our crib. I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but we're in our crib because I literally just saw this on social media, like people like trying to train the baby. The baby's like a month old and they're trying to like train the baby to crawl. And then once we begin to crawl, is that enough? What do we have to do next? Walk. Is that enough? Stand ourselves up. We got to run. Is that enough? No. Then we have to go to school. Then we have to do well. That, you know, if you can't just get a C, you can't get it. You got to get an A, right? And you got to go to first grade, and then second, and then third, and then it's just this whole system. And I'm not saying this is bad or wrong. What I'm suggesting is that our entire lives we are conditioned to have to be better, be more, and go through this whole sequence of events in order to feel that we are successful. Otherwise, we're an absolute failure. Everything we've been raised to do since we were a child is if we don't accomplish it, we're a failure. And that's why. And then we internalize that and we put that on ourselves, and we put most people, for whatever reason, put more pressure on themselves than anybody else puts on ourselves. But it came from birth. The moment we're born, we're always being pushed to be better and be more. Shunryu Suzuki, the great Japanese Zen teacher, he said, you're perfect exactly how you are, and you could use a little improvement. You ever done any good in your life? You ever done some bad in your life? That's it. Leave it at that. You're not a good person or a bad person. You're just a person. Look around the room for a minute. Who in here has done things that really harmed others? Every single hand is up, right? Who here has done things that have helped others? Every single hand is up. That's part of this journey. It's not about looking back and saying, oh, I've done good or I've done bad, or I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. We've all had a whole bunch of that trickled into our lives. The question is, what are you going to do now? And if you spend all of your time looking back on all this resentment and all this anger and all this frustration and all the things that have gone wrong, what kind of mood does that put you in? Not so good. And when you're in a not so good mood, how do we behave? Not so good. You see this vicious cycle? Present moment is saying, dude, I have harmed and hurt me personally so many people. It's and like deeply. It's sad. It's disgusting. But I cannot spend time, as I did when I was younger, hating myself because of that. What good will that do? I'm not excusing it. I'm not forgetting that it occurred. But I'm not going to spend my whole life in self-hatred and resentment, because that's going to leave me feeling like a terrible person. And when I feel like a terrible person, I'm going to do terrible things. And then I'm just going to build more things that I resent in the future. So, give yourself a hug once in a while. You're not as bad as you think you are. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want your wallet back?
Yes.
All right. I'm very proud of how well you sat there this whole time, All right, so we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace and free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and their family and friends who suffer at this time, and to all of those who lost lives in Texas, at the school shootings in Chicago, the children and parents and their families who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, just a few quick announcements before you head out. Our Rockstar Dharma Bum host, David, will share a few words with y'all.
I'm a rock star today.
Rockstar.
Wow.
Elevated status,
Please just call me Rockstar Dave. We'll be good.
For sure.
We opened up the Dharma Bum Temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice with others. Just about every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or anything else for that matter. A family sangha for parents, kids, toddlers, and teens, which currently meets once a month. And we also have a half-day silent retreat the first Saturday of the month with an RSVP requirement. Everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is all on our website and are posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We also have a lending library in the back. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it, then bring it back to whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat cushion before you head out, and if a few people could stay to close and match the windows, that would be helpful. For Rockstar Dave, thanks for being here. We hope to see you again.
Thanks, Rockstar Dave. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you all.